He was known as Hollywood's gentleman, calm, charming, and impossible to hate. But behind that easy smile, James Garner carried a secret he refused to share for decades. A secret about another legend, Steve McQueen. They were both icons of their time. One, the fearless rebel on a motorcycle. The other, the smooth-talking hero audiences trusted. But what happened behind the cameras of The Great Escape was far from the friendship fans imagined. According to Garner himself, McQueen wasn't just difficult. He was, in Garner's own words, a pain in the ass. So what really happened between the two men who defined an era of cool? Why did a film about courage and brotherhood turn into a silent battle of ego, jealousy, and control? And what hidden truths did James Garner take to his grave? Truths he only revealed after McQueen was gone. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of Hollywood's most legendary rivalries and the shocking confessions that changed everything we thought we knew about The Great Escape. The untold battles of James Garner. Before James Garner became Hollywood's smooth-talking hero, he was a kid from Oklahoma just trying to survive. He lost his mother at 5, faced abuse from a cruel stepmother, and grew up scraping by through the Great Depression. At 14, after years of torment, he finally fought back, a moment that showed the quiet fire he'd carry for life. That same grit followed him into the Korean War, where he was wounded twice and earned 2 Purple Hearts, though he almost never spoke about it. One night on guard duty, a faint smell of garlic in the air tipped him off to nearby enemy troops. His quick instincts saved lives and proved what kind of man he was: calm, sharp, and quietly brave. After the war, he drifted through odd jobs, gas stations, carpet work, even a short modeling gig, until fate intervened. A talent scout noticed something in his easy confidence and urged him to try acting. Soon, that same understated strength turned him into the man audiences would root for on screen. Garner's rise looked effortless, but it was built on survival. And that toughness was about to be tested again, not on the battlefield, but in the ruthless world of Hollywood. The Maverick Showdown. When Maverick hit TV screens in 1957, James Garner became an overnight sensation. He wasn't the typical cowboy. No snarling, no gunslinger swagger. He was smart, funny, and charming, the kind of hero who could talk his way out of trouble instead of shooting through it. Audiences loved him for it. But behind the scenes, Hollywood was changing, and Garner was about to find out just how brutal it could be. In 1960, a writer's strike brought production to a halt. No new scripts meant no episodes, and no paycheck. Warner Brothers used the strike as an excuse to cut costs, laying Garner off and claiming there was no work available. But Garner wasn't buying it. He knew the studio was still producing shows just without paying him, so he did something no one expected. He sued them. Taking a major studio to court in the 1960s was career suicide for most actors, but Garner wasn't afraid. He'd been through worse, and this time he won. That victory made headlines, not just because he beat Warner Brothers, but because it exposed how studios treated their stars. Garner had proven he wasn't just another actor. He was a man who stood up for himself, no matter the cost. That fight changed him. From then on, James Garner wasn't just playing tough guys. He was one, and that quiet strength would follow him straight into the set of The Great Escape, where another battle, this time with Steve McQueen, was waiting to explode. The Great Escape. Rivalries behind the camera. By the early 60s, James Garner was unstoppable. Fresh off his victory against Warner Brothers, he jumped into The Great Escape, a massive World War II epic packed with Hollywood's rising legends. The film was ambitious, a daring story of Allied prisoners plotting a breakout from a Nazi camp. Garner played Hindley the Scrounger, the smooth-talking operator who could get anything, anytime, anywhere. It was the perfect role for him, clever, calm, and quietly heroic. But then came Steve McQueen, young, magnetic, and already building a reputation as the cool rebel of Hollywood. He played the Cooler King, a defiant loner who quickly became the movie's poster boy. On camera, the two seemed like brothers in arms. Off camera, it was a different story. As filming went on, McQueen started pushing for more screen time, more hero moments, more spotlight. Director John Sturges tried to balance it, But McQueen wasn't happy. He wanted the story to revolve around him, and Garner's natural charm kept stealing scenes. Tension built quietly, not screaming matches or dramatic fights, but something colder. A silent rivalry. 2 stars, 2 egos, 1 movie. And yet, in the middle of it all, Garner stayed calm. While McQueen fought for attention, Garner just did the work. Professional, sharp, unshakable. But what happened next would change their relationship forever. Because after The Great Escape hit theaters, one of these men became a legend, and the other started telling the truth about what really went down behind the scenes. Garner breaks his silence. The truth about Steve McQueen. For years, fans believed James Garner and Steve McQueen were friends, 2 Hollywood icons united by one of the greatest war films ever made. But behind the charm and camaraderie, there was tension simmering just below the surface. Garner didn't speak about it publicly for decades, not until his 2011 memoir, The Garner Files. And when he finally did, he didn't hold back. He called McQueen a pain in the ass, not out of spite, but out of pure honesty. Garner wrote that McQueen could be unpredictable, moody, and driven by insecurity. He compared him to Marlon Brando, brilliant on camera, but exhausting behind it. Garner saw it differently. To him, that wasn't acting. It was insecurity in disguise. He once said McQueen was more of a movie star than an actor, relying on his image instead of depth. And while others tiptoed around McQueen's ego, Garner stood his ground. Still, despite the tension, there was a strange respect between them. Garner described McQueen almost like a troubled younger brother, talented but constantly at war with himself. Even McQueen's own wife reportedly told Garner that her husband's jealousy came from deep insecurity. It wasn't hate, it was pity, mixed with frustration. Because Garner understood something about McQueen that most people didn't. Behind all that confidence, the king of cool was terrified of not being enough. And when Garner finally told the world the truth, he didn't do it to expose McQueen. He did it to remind everyone that even legends have cracks beneath the surface. Hollywood feuds, loyalty, and the other battles. Garner never forgot. James Garner wasn't the type to chase drama, but Hollywood always seemed to find him. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, but he had one thing most stars didn't: integrity. And in an industry built on ego, that made him stand out. In the Garner Files, he didn't just talk about Steve McQueen. He pulled back the curtain on everyone. He called out studio heads who treated actors like property. He criticized Charlton Heston's stiff acting style. And he even took aim at legendary mogul Jack Warner, calling him one of the rudest men he'd ever met. But not every feud came from power struggles. Some came from principle. One night, Garner hosted a poker game at his home. Among the guests was Charles Bronson, tough, brooding, and not exactly friendly. When Bronson lost a hand and tried to stiff a struggling extra out of his winnings, Garner stepped in. He told Bronson to pay up. Bronson refused. The room went silent. For a second, it looked like 2 Hollywood titans were about to come to blows. Garner didn't back down. Bronson eventually paid, but that tension never faded. Years later, when they crossed paths at a restaurant, both men still felt it. No words, just that quiet, unfinished resentment. That's who Garner was. He didn't start fights, but he finished them. He believed in fairness, even when it cost him friendships or opportunities. And while other stars built walls around their image, Garner stayed real, even when it wasn't pretty. He admitted to his flaws, his struggles, and even his experiments with things Hollywood pretended not to talk about. He didn't glorify it. He was just honest. And that honesty made people trust him even more. Through every feud, every lawsuit, every broken rib from his own stunts, Garner stayed grounded. He never forgot where he came from or what he stood for. And that same grounded spirit would carry him into his next great battle, one that tested not just his toughness, but his body, his health, and his future in Hollywood. The Rockford years, fame, pain, and the fight that almost broke him. When the Rockford Files hit TV in 1974, James Garner didn't just play a private detective, he became one. Jim Rockford was every bit the man Garner really was. clever, charming, and quietly tough. He wasn't a superhero or a slick action star. He was human, a guy who got knocked down but always found a way to get back up. Audiences loved that. They saw themselves in Rockford, tired, broke, a little jaded, but still fighting. The show exploded in popularity, earning Garner an Emmy and turning that gold Pontiac Firebird into a cultural icon. But what fans didn't see was the toll it took behind the scenes. Garner insisted on doing many of his own stunts, car chases, brawls, and the kind of physical work that left his body battered. Every season, the injuries piled up: torn knees, bad back, constant pain. Doctors told him to slow down. He didn't listen, not because he wanted glory, but because he wanted the show to feel real. By the 6th season, the cost was catching up. Garner was exhausted, in constant pain, and fighting through each scene with a quiet grit only he could pull off. When the Rockford Files ended in 1980, it wasn't for lack of fans. It was because his body couldn't take it anymore. But just like before, Garner didn't let Hollywood walk away owing him. Years later, he sued Universal Studios for unpaid royalties and won. 8 years of legal battles, and he came out on top. It wasn't about money. It was about respect. Even after his heart surgery, even after the stroke that slowed him down in later years, Garner never lost that spark. He came back for TV movies, revisiting Rockford one more time. Gray hair, slower walk, same easy smile. And fans loved him for it. He wasn't the biggest star or the richest or the loudest, but he was real. And that's what made him unforgettable. The legacy of James Garner, the gentleman who told the truth. James Garner never wanted to be a legend. He just wanted to be honest. In a town built on illusion, he told the truth. About the studios, the egos, the pain, and yes, even about Steve McQueen. He didn't gossip. He didn't dramatize. He simply said what others wouldn't. That McQueen was talented, magnetic, but trapped by his own insecurity. And that Hollywood's king of cool was still just a man, one chasing approval he never truly found. Garner's words didn't come from bitterness. They came from experience. He'd lived through war, heartbreak, lawsuits, and pain. And through it all, he never lost his integrity. Even when fame faded, Garner stayed the same guy who stood up for what was right. When he passed away in 2014, Hollywood lost one of its last true gentlemen, a man who could steal a scene without raising his voice and win a fight without throwing a punch. His story isn't just about fame or rivalry, it's about surviving, with decency, humor, and heart. James Garner showed that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just smiles, keeps its head high, and tells the truth. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, hit that like button. It really helps more people see it. And tell us in the comments, was Garner right about McQueen? Or was it jealousy between two icons? We'd love to hear your take.